The hotel room door was already unlocked when I got there. I didn't knock, didn't clear my throat, didn't rehearse a speech in my head. I just pushed it open, slow, silent, and stepped inside with the kind of calm that usually comes after someone breaks. Room 814. Downtown. She'd been at a conference. A pair of heels were by the window, not hers. There was jazz playing on a Bluetooth speaker, cheap red wine bleeding into 2 tumblers, and a men's coat folded neatly over the chair, like he didn't expect anyone else to see it but her. And there she was, sitting on the bed, scrolling through her phone in one of those oversized hotel robes, the kind you only put on after doing something you shouldn't. She looked up and smiled. "Hey, you're early." Early. That was the word she chose. Not surprised, not shocked, not even bothered. Just a casual, flat-toned, "You're early," as if I'd shown up too soon to my own betrayal. She stood, tightened the robe like it mattered now, and walked toward me like nothing was out of place. Look, I didn't plan for it to happen this way. I held up my hand. I wasn't here for a scene. No screaming. No throwing things. That was her style, not mine. I took the envelope out of my coat pocket and placed it gently on the desk. She glanced at it, but didn't open it. "What is this? Some dramatic gesture?" she said, crossing her arms. "You're not exactly the alpha male movie moment type." She laughed. She laughed, like it was all some quirky misunderstanding. Like I'd walked in on a surprise party and she was seconds from yelling, "Just kidding." That's when I said it. "You've been seeing him for 4 months. His name's Caleb. He's divorced, works in finance, drives a leased BMW, and he's allergic to shellfish, so you fake migraines on seafood nights." Her smile didn't drop immediately. It slid, slowly, like a melting mask. "I don't know what you think you're doing," she whispered. "I wiped the smirk off your face," I said. I turned to leave. I had no more words. But she did. And in part 2, you'll hear every one of them. Because that night, she didn't let me go quietly. I was almost out the door when I heard her voice, low and deliberate. "So that's it. You're gonna act like some tragic detective, drop your evidence, and walk off like you won something?" I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I could hear her breathing shift from mockery to discomfort. I could tell she wasn't used to me being calm. That's the thing about people who manipulate. They prepare for yelling. They feed on chaos. But stillness? That terrifies them, because it means you've stopped playing. She stepped forward, barefoot on hotel carpet, still wearing that robe like it somehow gave her control. "You think you're the victim here, huh?" she said. "I spent 3 years begging you to be present, to see me, and now you want to play the wounded husband?" I finally turned. I wanted to see her face when I said it. "You weren't invisible, Arla. You were just bored. And instead of growing up, you turned our marriage into a secret hobby you could cheat on when it got too predictable." That hit. Not because it was cruel, but because it was accurate, and she knew it. Her eyes darted to the envelope on the desk. She hadn't opened it yet. I waited. She didn't move. "You want to know what's inside?" I asked. "It's not divorce papers. It's a receipt." She blinked. "A receipt?" "From a PI, I said. "Followed you for 3 weeks. Photos, timestamps, hotel check-ins, texts. The whole cliché playbook." "You hired someone to stalk me?" She snapped, voice rising, arms crossed tighter now. "Are you hearing yourself?" "Yeah," I said flatly. "I hear myself. Do you hear you? You made me feel crazy for months. Told me I was imagining things, overthinking. I thought I was losing my mind. I used to apologize for your lies." She went quiet. Good. That was the first moment in over a year she didn't have something smug to say. But then, she smiled again. Not the same arrogant smirk from earlier. This one was slower, darker. "Oh, Milton," she said, almost like she pitied me. "You have no idea what game you're playing. You think this ends with some dramatic walkout and a printed manila folder? Caleb's not even the beginning." That stopped me. "I'm sorry, what?" She turned her back to me, sat back down on the bed, crossed her legs like we were chatting over coffee. "You think he was the guy? He's just one I didn't bother hiding." There was a ringing in my ears. For a moment, the room dimmed. I felt like I wasn't in my own body. "How many?" I asked, but I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. She didn't answer. Instead, she reached for her phone, thumbed through a few apps, and tossed it on the bed with the screen facing up. She knew what she was doing. Knew I'd look. The last message? From someone saved as Aaron, school. "Aaron, school can't stop thinking about that thing you whispered in the stairwell. Round 3 tonight." I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. You're unbelievable. You're late, she said coldly. I became this version of me long before you noticed. I stood there, absorbing it, letting the final illusions crack apart like thin ice. Then I looked back at her one more time. You think you're untouchable. But the thing about being quiet for too long is that people forget what you're capable of when you stop caring. She scoffed. What's that supposed to mean? It means, I said, walking out the door. The worst part for you hasn't even started yet. And I meant it, because I hadn't told her about the second envelope, the one I didn't leave on the desk. As the elevator doors closed, I watched the numbers descend like a countdown to the end of the life I used to know. I wasn't shaking. Not anymore. That part of me, the part that begged for explanations and cried into the steering wheel at midnight, was gone. What stood in his place was a man hollowed out, but sharp, focused, ready. Because while Arla was busy gloating in that overpriced hotel robe, thinking she'd won some twisted game, I was already 3 moves ahead. And the second envelope was already in motion. It wasn't for her. It was for them. Because here's the thing Arla never considered. Affairs don't exist in a vacuum. They're messy. They bleed. They touch people you don't expect. Colleagues, reputations, families. She thought I'd sit quietly in the ruins she made. She didn't realize I'd built exits she couldn't lock. The second envelope had been dropped off that same morning at a FedEx location 3 blocks from her job. Inside, copies of the texts, the hotel receipts, timestamps from the PI surveillance. And this was the critical part, a flash drive with audio clips from the wire he'd worn the night she invited Caleb into what used to be our living room. I hadn't listened to all of it. I couldn't. But the parts one did hear were more than enough to turn my stomach and set a plan in motion. I had addressed the package to Dean Ruths, head of her department. Why? Because Caleb wasn't just some fling. He was her coworker, her subordinate, her report. HR friendly? I don't think so. I'd also CC'd 2 board members. Not because I wanted to ruin her life, though I'm sure she'll paint it that way, but because I wanted her to finally feel what I felt. Out of control. Exposed. Small. The irony was thick. The same woman who once lectured me about emotional maturity now couldn't keep her hands off someone she was supposed to mentor. Guess she found mentoring more stimulating than marriage. I got back to my car and sat there for a while, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. I looked tired, older, but strangely calm. For the first time in months, I wasn't doubting myself. I wasn't questioning my gut or wondering if I'd misunderstood the signs. Everything was clear. Arla's smirk hadn't broken me. It had finished waking me up. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, but I already had a feeling I knew who it was. A minute later, a message appeared. Hi, it's Caleb. I think we need to talk. This is getting out of hand. Out of hand. Like he'd lost control of his little office affair and now wanted to negotiate terms. Like there was still some part of this he could spin or salvage. I didn't respond. I had nothing to say to him. Not yet. What Caleb didn't know, and what Arla was about to find out, is that I wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about balance. She burned the house down and laughed while it crackled. But I was already rebuilding, and every brick had her name carved into it. It started less than 24 hours after I mailed the second envelope. I didn't expect things to move that fast. Honestly, I thought bureaucracy would delay everything. But no. I got the first ping on my phone the next afternoon, a screenshot from a mutual friend who worked in Arla's building. It was a forwarded message from HR to all department staff. Effective immediately, Arla Mindel will be on administrative leave pending an internal review. All media inquiries must be directed to our legal team. It didn't mention Caleb by name, but I could read between the lines, and so could everyone else. You don't pull an award-winning lead consultant off a major pharmaceutical account unless something ugly has surfaced. And trust me, it had. I sat in my car again, parked in the same grocery store lot where I used to wait for her late-night texts saying she was wrapping up client calls. Funny how often I came here, like I thought being near something normal would make her lies sting less. I stared at the screen for a long time. I should have felt vindicated. Triumphant, even. But all I felt was numb. Hollow. Like I'd just watched someone torch their own life while I stood holding the match she gave me. I didn't reach out to her. She didn't call me. But Caleb did. Again. Twice. Then from a different number. Then from a restricted one. Then, finally, A voicemail, his voice cracking as he said, "Please, man, just let me explain. I didn't know it would cost everything. She said you were separated." I listened to that one twice. She said you were separated. She was feeding him lies, too. I guess that's what really hit me. She wasn't just careless. She was deliberate, strategic. She spun a version of our marriage that let her sleep beside another man without guilt. Caleb wasn't innocent, don't get me wrong, but I realized he'd been played in his own pathetic way, too. She made him believe he was rescuing her, that I was the anchor holding her down. And maybe that's the part that cut deepest, not the affair itself, but the way she rewrote me into the villain of her story to justify it. Later that night, I drove past her apartment. Not proud of it, but I did. I wasn't planning to go in. I just needed to see the place. The lights were on, but her car was gone. Someone else's was in her usual spot, a different one than before. My stomach turned. Had she moved on again? Was there a third guy? Or was she just collecting them like trophies, each one a reaction to the last? I didn't stay long. I left a package by her door. It wasn't dramatic. Just an envelope. Inside, one photo. From the PI's folder. It was her and Caleb on our couch. My couch. Laughing, drinking wine, barefoot. Her head resting on his shoulder. Not kissing. Not touching. Just smiling like she'd never smiled at me in years. No note. No threats. No messy accusations. Just the image. A mirror. I wanted her to see what betrayal looked like when it wasn't blurred by excuses or context. No caption. No defense. Just proof of how easily she had become someone I didn't recognize. I was halfway home when she texted, "You're being cruel now." I stared at those words for a long time. Cruel. After months of gaslighting, silence, and smug lies, I was the cruel one. I didn't reply. Not yet. Because I knew exactly what she feared most. Not losing her job. Not losing Caleb. She feared silence. And I was just getting started. By the end of that week, I could feel the silence settling in. Not peaceful silence, not closure. The kind that hums in your ears like a power line about to snap. She had stopped texting. Caleb too. No more calls. No, let's talk this through, or desperate attempts to guilt me into backing off. That's how I knew the fallout had officially begun. People only go quiet when they're hiding, or when they're busy scrambling to clean up something they can't control. I thought that would be enough for me. I really did. I thought once the truth was out, once I stripped away the lies and let them collapse under their own weight, I could finally exhale. Move on. Heal. But healing isn't linear, and some wounds get infected before they scab. I realized that I had spent so much time trying to understand who she became that I never stopped to ask who she'd been long before she met me. It started with a message from someone I didn't recognize. A woman named Delia Groff. She found me through an old shared friends group online, one I hadn't touched in years. The message was brief, too casual for how heavy it would turn out to be. "Hey, you don't know me, but I knew Arla in college. We should talk. It's important." I ignored it at first. Figured it was someone fishing for gossip or drama. But something about the timing nagged at me. Like maybe Arla's trail of damage didn't start with me. Maybe I was just the latest landing spot. So I responded. Delia called me that evening, and I put her on speaker as I sat in the living room, staring at the box of Arla's things I still hadn't touched since she moved out. I half expected Delia to sound crazy. You prepare for that, you know? When someone reaches out with cryptic warnings about your ex. But her voice was calm, wounded, familiar in a way I couldn't place. "She ever tell you about Marcus?" she asked. I told her no. The name meant nothing to me. "She wouldn't," Delia said. "He was her fiancé before you. She never told you because he doesn't exist in her version of her own history. She erased him, like she erases all the damage she causes." I sat there, listening as this stranger unpacked a relationship that sounded terrifyingly similar to mine, right down to the emotional distance, the quiet manipulation, the gaslighting, the cheating. Marcus had been the one who caught her in bed with someone else, except he didn't confront her. He walked out, packed his bags, moved cities, changed numbers, never spoke to her again. Arla told everyone he abandoned her, spun the story to make herself the victim. Delia only found out the truth months later when Marcus finally confided in a mutual friend. "She always lands on her feet," Delia said quietly, "but she always steps on someone else's neck to do it." It hit me then. How many versions of her were walking around in the memories of other people? How many Miltons and Marcuses she had left in ruins while she reinvented herself, untouchable and polished. I thanked Delia for calling. She paused before hanging up and said, "You're not the first, but you could be the last if you play this right." That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was heartbroken anymore. That phase had passed. Now I was furious. Not even at her cheating. At the intentionality of it all. At how she used people like scaffolding, builds herself up, tears them down, moves on without ever looking back. I realized then that the second envelope wasn't enough. Not really. This couldn't just be about exposing her professionally or emotionally. This had to be about undoing the version of her that everyone believed was real. And I knew exactly where to start. I logged into our shared photo account, the one we used to back up everything. She hadn't changed the password. Sloppy. I downloaded everything. Not just photos of us, but screenshots she'd saved, files, receipts, things she probably forgot were synced there. And in the middle of all that, I found something. An email. Drafted. Never sent. Titled, "In case he finds out." It was addressed to me. I opened it. And what was inside changed everything. I stared at the screen for maybe 10 minutes before I even opened it. The subject line alone was enough to sour my stomach. In case he finds out. Not "I'm sorry." Not "please forgive me." It was written like a contingency plan. Like she knew she was going to betray me from the beginning and needed an escape hatch already prepped. My chest felt tight as I clicked on it, hands still hovering near the keyboard, unsure whether I should even read it. But of course I did. Of course I had to. The body of the email wasn't what I expected. No apology. No regrets. No shame. Just paragraphs, carefully crafted, designed to control the narrative. She wrote as if she were speaking directly to a third party. Not to me. The whole thing read like a diary entry meant to be found by someone else. It started with, "If Milton ever finds out, he'll spiral. He always does. He has this way of making himself look like the wounded one, even when he's part of the problem. I'm writing this in case I need people to understand my side." My side. That phrase kept repeating. Over and over. My side. She framed our marriage like a cage. Described me as suffocating, emotionally unpredictable, impossible to please. She said I monitored her movements, questioned her friendships, acted jealous of her success. And then, the real dagger, she wrote. What I did with Caleb wasn't perfect, but it gave me peace. He reminded me that I wasn't crazy, that I deserved to be seen. It wasn't about cheating. It was about escaping. I don't know how long I sat there, reading and rereading her warped version of our life. But something inside me changed while I did. It wasn't rage. Not the usual betrayal. It was something quieter, colder. She wasn't just planning to justify what she'd done. She was preparing to rewrite history entirely if things got ugly. I could see it now. If I had yelled, snapped, thrown something, reacted like a man breaking down, she'd have pointed at that email like it was prophecy. "See? I told you. He's unstable." That's when I realized the truth. This wasn't just about covering her tracks. This was insurance. And I almost gave her the perfect excuse. Almost. But now that I knew what she was capable of, I started thinking about the other people she might have done this to, the trail she left. It wasn't enough to just bring her down professionally or expose an affair. Arla was the kind of person who reframed damage as survival. She always landed on her feet because she made sure she could spin her way out of every fire she started. So I printed the email. Then I forwarded it to myself, encrypted it, and stored it on multiple cloud drives. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but I knew one thing. If she tried to twist the story in public or legal settings, I'd be ready. She wanted to weaponize my pain into a weapon she could hold up and say, "Look what he did to me." But I wasn't playing that role anymore. I sent one message to her that night. Simple. Quiet. Not aggressive. Check the cloud backup. Impressive foresight. You always were good at making sure no one sees the whole picture. She didn't reply. Not that night. Not the next morning. But I knew she saw it. She always had her read receipts off, but I knew how she operated. She wouldn't respond right away. She'd panic first, then retreat, then try to control the next move. It was her pattern, and I was done dancing to it. Because the truth is, I wasn't spiraling. I was building a case, building a new story, one where she didn't get to narrate both sides. It was supposed to be just another Saturday. I had planned to keep a low profile, maybe walk through the farmer's market and pretend the world hadn't split in half. But halfway through sipping a burnt coffee from a food truck, I got a message that made my chest go tight. Not from Arla, not from Caleb, but from someone I'd never heard of before. Her name was Rhea Langford, and the first thing she said was, "I know you don't know me, but I know about Arla, and I know what she did to you. Because she tried to do it to me, too." At first, I thought it was a scam. Another Delia? Another person looking for gossip or connection through shared bitterness. But Rhea didn't lead with sympathy. She led with facts, dates, names, screenshots. She sent a photo of herself and Arla together at a women's retreat 2 years ago, smiling, glass of wine in hand, arm around each other like sisters. "She told me you were emotionally manipulative," Rhea wrote. "Said you withheld affection to punish her. That she was trapped in a marriage with a man who used kindness as currency." I stared at the message for a long time, the words curdling in my throat. This woman, a total stranger, had received the same script I'd seen before, but from the outside in. And worse, she believed it. Arla had built her own mythology, one designed to prepare other people to take her side the second her reality cracked. She'd told Rhea she was staying in the marriage for practical reasons, that she was planning her exit, that she needed to be careful because he might twist things. Rhea had bought it, until she didn't. She told me that after Arla's HR scandal broke, after the suspension, the whispers, the office grapevine humming with rumors, she started putting things together. The timing didn't add up. The things Arla said versus the facts on the ground. And when Rhea confronted her, gently, all Arla did was double down. Men like Milton always make themselves look like the victim. That line again, like a rehearsed spell. But Rhea wasn't spellbound anymore. She'd come looking for the other side of the story, and she found me. We met later that day, in public, neutral ground. I didn't trust easily anymore. She brought a folder with printed screenshots, messages from Arla, emotional rants, voice notes filled with crocodile tears and contradicting timelines. One where she claimed I was unemployed, another where she said I was obsessed with control, and yet another where she said I was a great man, but so broken he didn't know how to love properly. Rhea was quiet, respectful. She said, "I think she collects sympathy like it's oxygen. And when she can't get it anymore, she moves on to someone who hasn't seen behind the curtain." I don't know what stunned me more, the words, or the realization that I hadn't just been cheated on. I'd been framed in slow motion, over years, across multiple narratives, in rooms I never even entered. I gave Rhea one thing in return, the unsent email. She read it without blinking, then said, "She wrote this assuming she'd need it someday, but she didn't know you'd find it first." Before we parted, she gave me a piece of advice I wasn't expecting. "She's going to come back," she said. "Not because she's sorry, but because her version of the story only works if you're still playing your role." She was right, because that night, Arla showed up at my door. Not angry, not desperate, smiling, like none of it had happened, like she hadn't set fire to everything we ever were. She stood at my door like it was still hers. Hair done, eyes glassy, but no tears. Dressed in one of those neutral beige coats she always wore when she was trying to look put together but non-threatening. She gave me the kind of smile that was built to disarm. I didn't say a word. I just leaned against the frame and waited. "I thought we should talk," she said softly. "I think we both." "You can't be here," I said. "Calm. Even." She blinked. The smile barely twitched. "Milton, come on. Don't act like I'm the enemy. I know things got messed up, but we were more than that. You know we were. You know me better than anyone." And there it was. That line. Her favorite one. "You know me better than anyone." The thing is, I did know her now, better than she ever expected I would. I knew every version of her. The charming one. The anxious one. The victim. The manipulator. The woman who crafted stories around herself like armor, who always had a plan B, C, and D. But she never planned for this version of me. The one who didn't chase her down. The one who didn't scream. The one who finally understood that leaving the ruins wasn't weakness. It was the only real power I had left. So I opened the door wider, not to invite her in, but to let her see what was behind me. Boxes. Labeled. Stacked. Clean. Final. "I'm moving," I said. "Lease ends next week." She tilted her head. "Where are you going?" "Somewhere new." That made her nervous. Her fingers clenched the strap of her bag just slightly. She stepped closer. "So what? You're just done?" "I was done the moment you laughed," I said. "You just didn't know it yet." Her mouth parted like she had a response queued up, but for once, she didn't know which version of herself to use. She couldn't figure out which face I expected, the regretful ex, the mature one, the bold one who always walked away first. I didn't let her choose. I'm not going to ruin your life, Arla, I continued. I'm not sending anything else to your boss. I'm not posting your emails online. I'm not calling the people you lied to. That's what you expected. That's why you came here, to see if I was still holding the knife. She didn't deny it. She couldn't. But here's the truth, I said. I'm not angry anymore. Not even hurt. I'm just finished. You're not my story anymore. And I'm not yours. And with that, I stepped back inside and closed the door. She didn't knock again. She didn't call. She didn't follow. And I didn't look back. That was 6 months ago. I live in a smaller apartment now, near a lake. It's quiet. I've picked up painting, terrible stuff, really, but I hang them on the wall anyway. I adopted an old dog from a rescue named Ned who snores like a freight train and doesn't care what happened before today. And sometimes I sit on my porch and watch the sun go down, and I think about how long I stayed in something that only loved me when I was useful. But I don't think about her. Not with anger. Not with sadness. Just as a page I finally stopped rereading. Because in the end, I didn't need to destroy Arla to heal. I just needed to stop carrying the weight of someone who never once tried to carry me. And that's what freedom actually feels like.